I sold my car the day after Christmas. Not because I wanted to, but because the pipes burst again at the cafe and Mom said if we didn't fix them fast, the health inspector would shut us down. I didn't even argue. Just drove it to the lot, handed over the keys, and walked home in the rain, gripping my empty purse like it might still matter. That car was freedom. But I gave it up, like I gave up my savings, my weekends, and eventually, my house, to keep sweet ashes from turning into just that, ashes. It's funny. They named the bakery after Grandma Ashley, who supposedly started it with a single cherry pie and a smile. Cute story, right? Except the smile part was a lie. Grandma Ash ran that place like a general in a sugar war. She'd slap your wrist if your frosting swirled left instead of right. I inherited that ruthlessness. The others just inherited the nostalgia. So when Dad got sick last fall and Mom said we had to pull together, guess who stepped up? Not my brother Caleb, the golden boy with a drone business that went belly up in 2 months. Not Ivy, our influencer sister who once used the bakery's kitchen for a keto macaron video and nearly burned the place down. No. It was me. Emma. The emotional one. The one they called too much behind my back. But guess who was at the bakery every day at 5 a.m. proofing dough and fixing the espresso machine with YouTube tutorials? Yeah. Me. So when they sat me down last week, Dad, and Caleb, all three in matching polite faces, and said they'd decided it would be best if Caleb took over operations, I actually laughed. I thought it was a joke. I waited for the punchline. It didn't come. I'm sorry, Mom said, which meant she wasn't. But you're so involved emotionally. It clouds your judgment. Caleb added, you've done amazing, Em. Really. But I think it's time to bring in some structure. Some vision. Structure? Vision? This from the guy who once tried to serve cornbread cronuts because they're trending in Austin. I wanted to scream. Or cry. Or both. But I just nodded. Got up. Left. They didn't ask where I was going. They didn't ask if I was okay. Spoiler, I wasn't. But here's the thing about baking. It teaches you patience. Heat. Timing. Pressure. Revenge, like bread, needs time to rise. And I was about to serve it hot. Part 2, better left unbaked. I didn't show up at the bakery the next morning. No text. No call. Just silence. I knew it'd mess with them, especially Mom. She thrives on appearances. God forbid anyone thinks her daughter's gone rogue. By 6:45 a.m., I had 3 missed calls and a group text that said, Emma, please. Let's not make this messy. Too late. You see, when you're treated like the background character your whole life, people don't expect you to be the one holding the knife. Metaphorically. For now. Instead of crying into my pillow like they probably imagined, I went to a coffee shop across town. Not our cafe. A competitor. Trendy. Bright. Full of fake succulents and freelancers who wore beanies in 80-degree weather. And I watched. Not them. Myself. I watched myself sip a lavender oat milk latte I didn't even like and let the reality settle. I'd given up everything for that business. My retirement fund. My down payment. My sanity. And they handed it over to Caleb like it was a hand-me-down hoodie. But here's the part they didn't know. While they were busy drawing up contracts and talking vision, I still had access. Caleb hadn't gotten around to changing the logins. Because why would he? I was the one who set up our scheduling software, the security cameras, even the delivery app accounts. I was everywhere. That night, I logged into the supplier portal and changed the flour order from 100 pounds to 1,000. I rerouted it to Ivy's P.O. box as a joke. Petty? Sure. But it was just the amuse-bouche. Next, I went into the loyalty app and renamed Caleb's custom drink, which he insisted we call the C-Bomb, to Napoleon Complex. That got a few tweets. Then I quietly pushed a promo offering free cupcakes to anyone who used the code #TeamEmma. By morning, the cafe was chaos. Too many orders. Too few staff. Customers asking for cupcakes no one had prepped. Ivy texted me a screenshot of a Yelp review titled, "Whoever runs this place now should be punched in the taste buds." I smiled. Then went back to sleep. But the real hit? The secret menu item. There was a password-protected page on our website I'd built for private orders, weddings, events, big catering gigs. Caleb didn't even know it existed. On it, I posted a limited-time offer for custom breakup boxes. Half a dozen cupcakes, each with messages like "You're better off," "He was mid," and my personal favorite, "Tell his mom I said hi." Within 48 hours, we had over 200 orders. And they didn't know how to fulfill any of them. I was the only one who knew the recipes. The buttercream ratios. Which food dye gave the deep red, not that Pepto-Pink Ivy once used and made a bride cry. And suddenly, I wasn't just the girl they pushed aside. I was a ghost in the machine. A ghost with an apron and a plan. Part 3, Crumbs and Clues. By Friday, the group chat was radioactive. "Mom, Emma. Please. Come back so we can talk. Caleb, this is childish. You're hurting the business. Ivy, can you at least fix the frosting situation?" Caleb made purple. "It looks like sadness." I muted them. They still didn't get it. They thought I was having a tantrum. Burning it all down because I didn't get my way. But this wasn't revenge. Not really. This was education. Because here's what no one teaches you growing up in a family like mine: being the reliable one doesn't mean you're respected. It means you're expected. Expected to give. To fix. To stay small so others can stand tall. I was done. And I had receipts. Literally. A couple months ago, I'd started backing up all the cafe's finances. Not for fun, just because I knew no one else would. I kept a folder labeled taxes on my desktop. Inside was everything. Invoices. Payouts. Even the Venmo payments Mom liked to call under the table. I renamed it Caleb's Resume and uploaded it to a private Google Drive. Then I sent the link to a food blogger. Not just any blogger. Sarah Sweets. The queen of viral bakery reviews. She once destroyed a donut chain with a single Instagram reel. I DM'd her weeks ago, just to test the waters. She replied within an hour. OMG. This is insane. Can I call you? We talked for 2 hours. I told her everything, how I mortgaged my house, how my parents gaslit me into thinking I was just helping out, how Caleb nearly tanked the business with his NFT cake idea. She ate it up. Pun intended. By Saturday morning, her exposé was live. Sour at Sweet Ashes, a family bakery's sugary betrayal. My phone exploded. But the best part? The article wasn't just about me. It featured anonymous staff who backed up my story. Photos of Caleb's failed marketing campaigns. Screenshots of the awful Yelp reviews. Even a quote from a former barista who claimed Caleb once tried to charge customers extra for emotional labor. The story hit Reddit. Then Twitter. Then local news. I watched it unfold like a movie. Ate microwaved mac and cheese while Mom's brand melted in real time. Caleb posted a Notes app apology that ended with "I'm just trying my best." Ivy tried to pivot with a TikTok crying video, but it got ratioed. By Sunday, sales had plummeted. The supplier flagged our account. Customers were showing up just to take selfies in front of the now infamous Napoleon Complex chalkboard. And me? I went back to that same cafe across town. Ordered the same lavender latte I still didn't like. And I smiled. Because while they were busy putting me in a box labeled too much, I was already building my own empire. And it was almost time to unveil it. Part 4, Proofing the Future. The day after the exposé went viral, I started getting job offers. No joke. 2 local bakeries reached out, one even offered me a signing bonus and stock options, like I was some kind of Silicon Valley dough whisperer. But I wasn't interested in working for someone else. Not again. Not after all this. I had a different plan. 3 weeks earlier, while Caleb was still taking over operations and learning how to not burn scones, I'd quietly filed paperwork for an LLC. It was called Crumb Theory. It started as a joke, just a backup Instagram account where I posted behind-the-scenes baking disasters, mostly to vent. But it blew up. People loved it. They loved me. Or at least the version of me that was unfiltered, exhausted, funny, and very publicly done with fake family wholesomeness. Now it was real. A brand. A vision. A future. And I had the perfect place picked out for the storefront. It used to be a mechanic's garage, gritty, tucked behind an old bowling alley, with just enough parking and plenty of attitude. I'd driven by it every day on my way to Sweet Ashes, but now it looked different. Like something waiting to be transformed. The landlord was a retired vet named Ron who liked that I was a fighter. I signed the lease that afternoon. And then, because I'm petty and productive, I sent Mom a cake. A 3-layer vanilla bean with salted caramel filling. Her favorite. On top, in delicate script, it said, "Thanks for the lessons. I won't need seconds." The delivery guy told me she cried. But here's where it got interesting. That same night, while I was painting the garage floor and blasting Stevie Nicks, I heard a knock. I assumed it was Ron checking in. It wasn't. It was Ivy. Wearing sunglasses at 9 p.m., holding a bottle of rose and a pizza. "Please don't slam the door," she said. "I don't have a door yet," I replied. She laughed, awkward. "Right. Cool. Yeah." I stared at her. Waiting. "I want in," she said finally. "With Crumb Theory." I blinked. "You dragged me on TikTok 2 days ago." "I dragged Caleb," she corrected. "You were just collateral." Which, to be fair, I always thought was a finance word until last week. I didn't smile. She sighed, handed me the pizza like a peace offering. "Look," she said, "I get it now. You're the real deal. You made that place run. And yeah, I made fun of you. But that was before I realized you were building something better." I didn't trust her. Not fully. But I was curious. "What's the catch?" I asked. "No catch," she said. Then, after a beat, "Okay, maybe one. I need somewhere to shoot content again. And I really don't want to go back to Caleb's stupid Crumb Wars idea. He's trying to rebrand as a baking alpha now." I rolled my eyes. But I handed her a paintbrush. "Fine," I said. "You want in? You work." And so, Ivy joined the revolution. 2 sisters. 1 burned-down legacy. And a business rising from the wreckage. But we weren't done yet. Not by a long shot. Part 5, Stirring the Pot. By the time the bakery's opening day arrived, I had more than just a fresh coat of paint on the walls. The vibe was gritty, yes, but it felt right. Raw, like dough just before you need it, full of potential. It wasn't the polished Instagram perfect look I could have gone for. It was real. Messy. Just like me. Ivy had already started filming the soft launch video, complete with a few poorly lit bloopers of me tripping over flour bags and saying something questionable about gluten-free people. But by the time the day actually came, it felt like the stars had aligned. Ron came by with a handful of old keys, holding a butcher's knife and some plastic-wrapped sausages for luck. He wasn't wrong, either. I felt a nervous excitement that morning, something I hadn't felt in ages. That first day at the bakery, energy. The air smelled like fresh butter, cinnamon, and possibility. The sign outside, Crumb Theory, where the crumbs tell the story, gleamed in the early sunlight. Then, at exactly 10:02 a.m., Caleb showed up. I was rolling out dough at the time. Of course, he had to make an entrance. Waving from the doorway, looking like he had just walked out of a podcast about finding your purpose. "Hey, Em. It's good to see you," he said, stepping in with his usual arrogant flair. I didn't even look up. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were busy," he said, taking a few steps back. "Just wanted to make sure you knew the family." "Family? The family that doesn't know how to run a bakery?" I interrupted. My voice was sharp, but not as sharp as the smile I gave him. He bristled. It was the first time in years I'd seen him falter. "I'm not here to fight," Caleb said, his tone changing. "I came to offer help." I stopped rolling the dough. There was no help in his voice, just the same old smug tone he'd always carried. The one that made me feel like the invisible one. "I don't need help, Caleb. I'm doing fine," I said, keeping my voice calm, steady. It was the voice I'd perfected when I'd finally realized I could no longer rely on anyone else. "But Mom said." "Mom isn't here," I snapped, cutting him off again. Silence. Ivy, who'd been quietly filming in the background, stepped in. "Hey, Caleb, can we get you anything? A seat? Maybe a cup of coffee?" His gaze shifted to her, clearly annoyed. "I'm fine, Ivy. Thanks." Ivy barely acknowledged him, turning the camera back to me. "All right, Em, what's next on the agenda for today?" I looked at Caleb, then back at Ivy. "We open in 20 minutes. That's what's next." Caleb lingered for a moment, clearly realizing that this was no longer his space. No one in this room owed him an ounce of attention anymore. Finally, he nodded, his expression hardening. "You'll see, Em. Things are never as easy as they look." He turned and left. I couldn't help but laugh. It wasn't the satisfying laugh I'd hoped for, though. It was hollow, like all the joy from this day was somehow lost on me. But I didn't dwell on it. Not today. Crumb Theory officially opened its doors at 10:30 a.m., and the line stretched out the door. The moment we started serving, the floodgates opened. People were drawn in by curiosity. By the scandal. By the word of mouth from the exposé. By noon, we were selling out of everything. Croissants. Scones. The infamous breakup boxes. The crowd was bigger than I ever imagined. The buzz on social media grew. Every time a customer walked out with a box, their face lit up. Ivy's TikToks and Instagram posts went viral. One video of her throwing flour at the ceiling in excitement was shared across every bakery-focused account in the country. People from out of state were calling, asking if we shipped. But something strange happened right in the middle of all this. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mom. "You've made your point. But you need to come home. Caleb is struggling." I stared at it for a while, not sure how to respond. I had no interest in going back. I was done being the fixer. Done being the one who always made things right. But then I thought of something sharp. What if I could fix this, but on my own terms? I typed back. "Tell Caleb I'll come by when he asks for help. Not when you do." Then I put the phone down. The doors were open. The bakery was thriving. And I wasn't going to stop now. Part 6, Rising Heat. By the end of the week, Crumb Theory was no longer just a local bakery. It was a phenomenon. The press had picked up on the viral frenzy, and suddenly I found myself doing interviews I hadn't asked for. Radio stations, local news channels, everyone wanted to hear my side of the story. I wasn't sure I even had a story to tell. I wasn't some heroic figure. I was just a woman with a whisk in one hand and a point to prove. But the attention felt good. I liked the idea of being seen, finally. Still, it wasn't all rainbows and frosting. Caleb was spiraling. I could feel it. Even though he hadn't reached out directly, I could tell from his social media that he was scrambling. He was pushing the Sweet Ashes comeback as if people cared, flooding Instagram with old photos of the cafe's past successes. He even started reposting old family photos to seem more relatable, as if the drama didn't exist, as if people couldn't see through the thinly veiled attempts at sincerity. And the messages from Mom kept coming. "Emma, I'm begging you. Please come talk to Caleb. He's not the same." But I ignored her. Ignored the texts. Ignored the calls. I'd told her I'd come when Caleb asked for help. He hadn't. He probably wouldn't. But then, one Thursday night, right after the cafe closed, I received a call I didn't expect. It was from Ivy. She was in tears. "I don't know what to do, Em," she said, her voice shaky. "I thought it was just business. But Caleb, he's not handling it well. He came by today, asking to talk, and then he just started crying." I gripped the phone tighter. "What do you mean crying?" He was telling me how everything was falling apart. He said he never realized how much you were holding together, how much of the success of Sweet Ashes was because of you, Ivy said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know. It's just weird." I sat back against the counter, staring out the window at the dark streets. Caleb, crying? I couldn't even picture it. He'd always been the golden boy. The one who never had to do anything but show up and take credit for the work everyone else did. He was always the charmer, the one who got away with everything. And now, for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to feel pity or vindication. "Did you tell him about crumb theory?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Ivy hesitated. "I didn't want to bring it up. Not then. I think he's finally realizing he's been in the shadow of something bigger than him." That stung. I hadn't expected Ivy to be the one telling me Caleb's breakdown. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just him who was struggling. Mom was right. Caleb was falling apart. And it wasn't because of me. It was because he'd built nothing. He'd only ever inherited. He didn't have the grit to keep something running, not the way I did. But the deeper I dug into his struggle, the more I realized something else. Caleb wasn't just feeling lost. He was angry. Not just at me. At the whole situation. And the worst part? He wasn't done. At 2 a.m. the next morning, I got a message from an anonymous account on Instagram. It was a video. One of those blurry, shaky clips that people post to stir up drama. The timestamp read, 1:34 a.m. I clicked on it. It was Caleb. But he wasn't crying. He was ranting. Emma thinks she's some kind of genius. That she built something from nothing. Well, guess what? That's not how the world works. You can't just tear everything down and build it up again. That's not how families work. That's not how legacies work. He stared into the camera, his eyes wide with manic energy. I've earned my place. And when I take over Sweet Ashes again, I'll prove it. I'll prove to everyone who ever doubted me. Even Emma. The video cut off abruptly. And I felt the air leave my lungs. It wasn't just business anymore. This wasn't about a bakery or a brand. It was personal. Caleb had declared war. And I had to be ready. Because in his mind, I wasn't just threatening his bakery. I was threatening his identity. His very purpose. And the scary part? I wasn't sure if I could handle what came next. Part 7, Frosting the Knife. The moment I watched Caleb's video, I knew things would never be the same. His words echoed in my mind for days. The anger in his voice. The desperation. And what struck me most was how justified he seemed in his own eyes. Caleb truly believed that everything was his right. That Sweet Ashes, this legacy he claimed to be building, was a prize he was entitled to, and anyone who got in the way was just a problem. It wasn't just personal anymore. It was a full-blown war. I knew I had to step up my game. In the days that followed, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went quiet. No more interviews. No more TikToks. I locked down Crumb Theory's social media accounts. Everything went silent. In that silence, I worked. I called in favors from people I'd met over the years. Freelance designers. Food bloggers. Local journalists who'd taken an interest in my story. And with Ivy's help, we started building something bigger than Caleb could imagine. I bought the domain name for crumbtheory.com, and we began to lay out the plan for the future, a full-scale expansion of Crumb Theory. Not just a bakery, but an entire lifestyle brand. A hub for food education, merch, recipes, online courses, and even a podcast. We weren't just selling pastries, we were selling a new way of thinking about food. About purpose. Meanwhile, Caleb kept doing what Caleb does best, blaming everyone else for his failures. I caught wind that he was organizing a rebranding campaign for Sweet Ashes, pulling in some local influencers, creating a whole new menu. But all of it felt shallow. It didn't have heart. It didn't have me. He was scrambling. Trying to do what I'd done effortlessly, build something from scratch, but he couldn't get past the surface. The glossy veneer. The look, but not the soul. One night, as I was perfecting a new croissant recipe, Ivy called me again. He's losing it, she said. He's been hanging out with a bunch of people from the old days, you know, the ones that only came to Sweet Ashes when Mom was still making the pies. And now? He's just making noise. It's all about what people want, not what's right. I could hear the frustration in her voice. I didn't need to ask her for more details. It was the same thing I'd seen from him all along, only this time, he wasn't even pretending to care about the business. He was just trying to keep the spotlight on him. He needed it. And he was failing. But I wasn't failing. I wasn't letting him get to me. That week, I launched Crumb Theory's online store, dropping exclusive products, a limited edition vanilla saffron syrup, Crumb Theory branded aprons, and a cookbook with recipes I'd perfected from scratch. The launch went viral, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like everything I'd worked for, everything I'd sacrificed, was paying off. It wasn't just about proving Caleb wrong anymore. It was about creating something new, something all my own. And it felt damn good. But the tension was rising. Caleb wasn't done. Not yet. The next Friday, I received a message I never expected. It was from Mom. We need to talk. Caleb's going to make a move. And you should know, I'm not sure I can protect you this time. I stared at the message, my heart beating faster. Protect me? Was she serious? After all this time, after everything that had happened, now she wanted to protect me? I took a deep breath, counting to 5 before responding. I've been protecting myself, Mom. I'm not coming back to Sweet Ashes. Not to play second fiddle to Caleb. Not to clean up his mess. She didn't respond immediately. For once, she gave me the silence I'd needed. But it was too late. I already knew what she was going to say. Caleb was planning something drastic. Something I couldn't ignore. And when I saw his latest post on Instagram that night, I realized how far he was willing to go. He'd taken the original Sweet Ashes logo and altered it, turning the once friendly, comforting brand into something cold. Something aggressive. His post captioned, "It's time to reclaim what's mine." But the most disturbing part? In the background of his image, hidden behind the text, was a single detail, a building that looked eerily familiar. It was Crumb Theory's new location. I felt a chill run down my spine. Caleb was coming for me. Not just to take back his bakery, but to take my whole thing, my identity. He wanted to be me. And I wasn't going to let him. Part 8, the final proof. I couldn't breathe. When I saw Caleb's post, everything seemed to stop. My stomach twisted, and my hands shook. It wasn't just a threat anymore. It wasn't just about a bakery. It was about him trying to erase me. Trying to take everything I'd built. To replace me. I stood frozen in front of the screen, staring at that picture of Crumb Theory's new location, with the unmistakable green facade. The brickwork. The sign. It was all there. And right then, I realized he was planning to open a second Sweet Ashes at my spot. Right across the street from me. I rushed to the window and looked out at the street. There it was, that familiar corner I had spent so many nights pacing, so many hours planning, now being threatened by the very thing I had spent years trying to outrun. I grabbed my phone and called Ivy. She answered almost immediately. What's happening?" she asked. "You're freaking out. What's going on?" "Caleb," I breathed. "He's planning to open a Sweet Ashes across from Crumb Theory. He's coming for me." There was a long pause on the other end. "What? How?" He took the picture. The one I posted about Crumb Theory's new location. "It's not a coincidence. He's coming." I could feel my heart race, but there was no panic. Not yet. I knew what needed to be done. "I need to act fast," I said, my voice sharp. "Ivy, can you get in touch with the media? We need to make this public. No more hiding. If Caleb thinks he can play these games, then he's about to find out that I'm not the one to mess with." The next few hours were a blur. Ivy rallied the troops, bloggers, influencers, and local news stations who had followed our journey from the beginning. I got to work on drafting a post that would hit Caleb where it hurt, publicly. It wasn't just about revealing his plan. It was about exposing him for what he really was, a fraud. I snapped a picture of the Sweet Ashes sign across the street from my bakery, a clean shot of it with Caleb's name faintly visible in the reflection of the window. The caption read, "Some people think the only way to survive is to steal from others. But here at Crumb Theory, we believe in creating something from scratch. You can't copy passion. You can't fake it. This bakery will always be mine, and no matter what you do, Caleb, you'll never be able to replicate the heart behind it. #NotYourLegacy #Crumb Theory." I hit post, and the storm began. It didn't take long before the media outlets were buzzing with the story. The sibling rivalry angle was all over the headlines. The drama. The accusations. The underlying truth that no one could ignore anymore. Caleb was destroyed. By the next day, his fake rebranding campaign was in shambles. The influencers he'd hired were pulling out, disgusted by the backlash. People began to dig into his past, finding inconsistencies in his story. They found receipts. Old contracts. Things that didn't add up. It was like the ground beneath him was crumbling. And I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. But there was one last thing I had to do. I gathered Ivy, Ron, and the team together that evening. It was time for a celebration, but not the kind Caleb was expecting. We opened the doors to a small but intimate gathering of loyal customers, local press, and a few friends who had stuck by us through thick and thin. We celebrated the heart of Crumb Theory, the soul of the bakery that Caleb could never steal. I stood up to give a speech, holding the microphone steady in my hand. "We're here today because we believe in something that Caleb never understood," I began. "It's not about reputation or legacy. It's about the people we serve. The community we build. We don't sell pastries. We sell passion. We sell realness. And no one can take that away from us. The crowd cheered. Ron clapped the loudest, his face red and full of pride. And in that moment, I realized something else. I wasn't just fighting Caleb. I was fighting the expectations that had been thrust on me since I was a kid. The idea that I wasn't good enough. The idea that I wasn't capable of making something my own. But here I was. Doing it. And no one could take that away. The next morning, Caleb called me. I didn't answer. But he left a voicemail. You don't get it, do you? I'm not trying to destroy you. I just wanted to be seen. I just wanted to matter. I stared at the phone, holding back the urge to feel sorry for him. But I couldn't. Not anymore. He had made his choices. He had made his move. But I had one. And as the sun set over crumb theory, I smiled. I was finally free. The end.